Warren Ingram. Now listen, I saw a look. I didn't know if it was that look or if it was a look or if you agreed with me even. I said, and some people are going to be cross with me, that there may be some people in the investment industry and the advice industry still lurking in some of the darker corridors of investment advice that one might equate to the equivalent of a bucky builder.
I think it's a very fair comment. You know, I was. Why
are you being so unkind to bucky builders? Yes.
You know, I'm going to be assassinated at one of my industry functions one day. So I check my LinkedIn profile about once a month, and I was doing that last week, and I saw a very kind invitation from a youngster who said that he would like to offer me a free consultation to look at my investments and overall financial planning. He will do for free a review of my whole position, and then give me some suggestions. There's no strings attached.
Does your LinkedIn profile not say Director, Galileo Capital and Financial Advisor?
And author of a couple of books, and been in the industry and won one or two awards in the deal. All of that, all of that's right there at the top of the. You know, I followed LinkedIn's rules about what you should do, and it's all there. So it was just too good an opportunity.
You didn't.
I went back. But first what I did was I went to his profile because, I mean, you know, if you're going to take the time to write me a message and give me this free consultation, I mean,
the least you could do is pay him the respect of interrogating his credentials.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I saw was he's been in the financial planning industry for 3 months. Before that, he was a barman at a wedding venue.
Good people person. And people skills are important in the world of financial advice.
Then I looked at how he described himself to potential clients, and he describes himself as an experienced financial advisor. He works for one of the very big insurance companies. And this is a man walking on a business card who then offers this. So I did write back to him and you know, thanked him very much and just asked him to please point out what flaws I have in my planning process or my knowledge gaps or whatever. Unfortunately, he hasn't come back. So I suspect he might now have read my profile. And so my question then to that insurance company, to my industry, is how on earth can someone like that go around calling themselves an experienced financial advisor? That to me is just crazy. And that's probably on his card, financial advisor. And financial advisor to me means something. And so I have no problem that you're going to start out in this industry. You have to start somewhere. I'm not saying that you don't get your training, but surely 3 months before you get let loose on clients is just far too short. And so that's a starting point. So that leads me to tonight and to your bucky builder. That's a bucky builder. He just happens to be branded beautifully, you know. So it's almost like he's, you know, Builder's Warehouse bucky builder. And so you're going to think, well, he's got Builder's Warehouse branding on his bucky. He must be very good. And no disrespect to Builder's Warehouse. I love Builder's Warehouse. But that's not, you can't rely on the brand on the person's card to say this is going to be a brilliant advisor.
What can you rely on to know that somebody's going to be a brilliant advisor? Because it's one of those great unknowns. I mean, somebody comes and sits across the table from you. You only know in 5 years' time whether we're brilliant or not.
Well, I think there's quite a bit that you can do. So to me, the starting point is, I want to know that they've got a qualification in the industry. I'm not saying that you have to be, so the industry qualification for financial planners is called a certified financial planner. CFP.
And that's quite hard.
Yeah, it's a proper postgrad qualification. You can't study this stuff for 2 weeks and get that and go on your way. The regulator in South Africa has a much lower standard, and to me that's not the standard that needs to apply. So you need to look at that and say, okay, at the very least, if the person's not very experienced, I would like them to have that qualification. You know that on a yearly basis they're doing 30 hours of ongoing education that's verified. It's not just that they say they got it. You have to sign in. Someone checks your ID. You have to sign out on the way out and check your ID again. So at least you know they were sitting in the room. They might not have been paying attention, but they were there. They pay a lot of money. They've got to be part of this deal. They've got to do some integrity. So if you get bust for lack of integrity, you're out. So there's at least a very minimum standard. As we know from someone who calls themselves a chartered accountant in South Africa, that's no guarantee that that's also going to be just,
fair enough,
a fair standard. So I'm not saying that that's your only deal, but to me, that's the starting point. Then you actually need to say, how long have you been doing this? And can you give me a couple of clients' names? I'd like to call them.
No, that's private information. I can't disclose my clients' names because they won't want to know that they get financial advice from me.
All you need to do is, if you're the advisor if your advisor gives you that argument, then put down the phone. Because any good advisor would say, sure, all I need to do is I need to contact those clients first and ask their permission and see if they're okay.
If you're half smart, you say to the clients who love you most, do you mind if I drop your name occasionally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just not a problem. And you should be proud to do that if you're an advisor. You should be saying, great, I'd love you to chat to my clients, because then you know the standard. So to me, those are the very starting points of any conversation with someone. I'm not saying that if they don't have a qualification, that, if they've been doing this for 20 years, then perhaps they've learnt enough over the time and studied enough that you can start the conversation with them. Then, this is a relationship of trust. This is, this could be, if it's a good relationship, probably the second most important relationship in your life, other than your spouse, your partner, because this is someone that you could walk around.
What's the most important one?
Your spouse.
No, you said other than your spouse.
Well, it's second to your spouse.
Oh, okay, second to your spouse. Gotcha.
Or yeah, I can't go down that route.
No, but but it is that intimate a relationship. For this thing to work properly, you need the level of disclosure that in a healthy spousal relationship you would have with somebody outside of that relationship. To say, this is how much trouble I'm in, or this is what I've got, or this is how I got it. How do I resolve this problem? Or how do I get the best possible result out of these assets?
Yeah, and staying on the spouse theme, you don't marry, or not necessarily marry the first person you'll ever meet. That's not you.
Yeah, I was concerned. So just quickly.
So my suggestion there is meet 3 of them. Meet and interview 3 of these people, and very quickly, it's amazing how quickly you get a feel for what's a good advisor and what's a bad one. Yeah. By asking them a few questions. We can go through what the questions are, but it's amazing because a couple of things happen. One, you should feel free to ask the dumb question without being embarrassed, without feeling uncomfortable. To be able to say, I actually don't know what a unit trust is. Yes, I'm a chartered accountant and I've been studying this stuff or working in the industry for 20 years. I don't know what a unit trust is. Please, can you explain? If you can't ask that question of your advisor and feel comfortable asking that, you're in the wrong place. And then walk out. If they're talking over your head, walk out. So I think that interview, to me, that interview process really works well. I want to ask, if I'm a client, I want to ask, whether the person can sell only one company's products or can they sell lots?
Are they a tied advisor or are they independent? And if they are independent, because you can't, if you're an independent financial advisor, you can't possibly sell everybody.
No, you can't. And so you'll have a list of favorites, and that
preferred product
providers. But just to stay on the tied agents, because then our Twitter feeds will blow up with tied agents saying that we're being unfair to them. My view is a great tied agent will be an expert in that tied agent's range of products, and that's not a bad thing. No. There's no bad thing, but you just need to know so that if that person works for Company X, that's all the recommendations you're ever going to get is from Company X.
And Company X may be very good at what they do. That's fine.
And they might train their people really well.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that's okay. But the independent, again, why do you use particular companies? And then, if it's an investment person, so the likelihood is in South Africa, you're going to be in unit trusts. Somewhere along the line, you're going to be in unit trusts if you're dealing with an advisor. The great question to ask that person, how do you choose your unit trusts and why? What's your process?
What happens if I don't understand the answer? Well, I think I understand the answer, but I probably don't.
They need to explain it.
Yeah.
So there is no jargon here. They should be able to explain it to you very simply. The few terms that are jargon related, they should be able to teach you those. Because believe me, if I can understand this stuff, anybody can understand it. It's just a case of it being explained to you correctly. And then I want to know how the person is paid. That's a great question to ask. You can't be embarrassed to ask that question. Nowadays people ask their doctors, how much are you going to charge before they come and see the doctor? They don't ask the doctor after three different consultations, oh, by the way. So for an advisor, that should be right up there. That's something that the advisor is gladly happy to explain to you. This is how I get paid. And in rand terms, this is what it's going to be. And then for investment,
are we at a point in South Africa where we've seen the death of the thing that is the biggest lie in investments, the total expense ratio? Because the total expense ratio is not the total expense ratio, where we actually know that there is an advice fee, there's a product fee, there are 5 different layers of cost, and actually, if you give me 100 rand, only 97 Rand gets invested every month.
No, we're not at the end of it, I'm afraid. So there is a better level of disclosure nowadays, especially in the unit trust world, where they call it an EAC, effective annual charge, which tries to really get through all the layers of costs. But I can't tell you how many times I see a statement from somebody and they say, my investment charge is 0.5% a year. And I go, well, that's incredible, because you've got a living annuity with unit trusts and you're paying an advisor. So you're paying administration fees, advice fees, and unit trust fees, and your charge is 0.5% a year. Yeah. Can I have a look at a statement? Oh, it's the advice fee, which is 0.5% a year. And so that's, that's an issue for me. But really the one what's really difficult is the investments offered by insurance companies, because they really are good at making this very difficult to understand. So they'll say to you, I saw one today, this is the effective annual charge. If you keep it in with us, then it's 8% in year one. How on earth is it going to be 8%? Then it's 5% year two, etc., etc., etc. But if you want to compare apples with apples, in other words, if you're going to move it, then you must look at this table where the effective annual charge is only 3%. Now, I'm
confused already.
Yeah. So to me, that stuff needs to be explained to you simply. Then, if you're buying investments from an advisor and they want to charge you upfront fees, that needs to be really carefully understood, because to me nowadays, I can understand if an advisor says to you, look, I'm going to have to do a heck of a lot of work for you and you're going to save 500 Rand a month with me. And unfortunately, if I'm going to charge you 1% a year on 500 Rand a month, it's going to take me a long time to make some money out of you. So I'm going to charge you 5,000 Rand or 10,000 Rand for a plan that I'm going to develop. I'm going to explain everything. It's your 20-year plan, and that's a Rand fee for the service. And then I'm going to earn the ongoing fee. That makes sense to me. But if someone says, I'm going to charge you 1.5% per debit order upfront, and if you do any lump sums, another 1.5% a year or per deal, plus I'm going to charge you an annual fee, then you should be sort of getting up the chair to leave, unless they can really explain a really good reason why. I can't really think of one off the top of my head.
But the thing is, you see, when somebody says something like that and they say it quickly or they couch it in a less clear way than you've just couched it, it's only 1.5%. Oh, that's fine.
We'll just do a little bit of maths yourself. And I mean,
1.5% for every $100 that you invest, or whatever the case might be, because you only do $100 at a time. It's going to cost you a blooming fortune over time, plus the annual fee.
Yeah. And then, if you're making an investment decision, that person needs to say to you, the one promise that I think any advisor should make when they make investment decisions for clients is, this is how much money I promise to lose you when we get another big crash like 2008. This is the promise I'm going to make you. And it's going to be, if you want this high return, fabulous, no problem. That'll be lovely. But you just need to know it's going to be 30% down in a big 2008 size crash.
Or 40%.
Or 40%.
Or 50%.
And then they can start to talk about, well, potentially how much growth are you going to get out of the deal? But if they're going to give you a growth number, then they need to say, well, in a low road scenario, this is what it's going to be. Medium road, and remember, medium road's going to happen. That's actually what's going to happen. And then this is the high road, which is going to be the one out of every 10 years when life is fabulous. But they need to give you those numbers. But the very first number you want to know is, how much am I going to lose? Because that's the real question here. We don't make investment mistakes as investors in the good times when everything's going well. We make it in 2008 when we see suddenly for the first time our portfolio drops by 40%, and no one's ever told us that. And then all of a sudden we get really nervous.
So at the Alexander Forbes conference, which I know you attended, there was one of the speakers, I don't know who he was, saying, actually, there's no real genius to investing. All you've got to do is make no mistakes. If you make no mistakes, you are going to do well. Just don't make stupid mistakes. A quick question from Ray in Q, who says, he wants to know the difference between a financial advisor and a financial planner.
Probably not much. The industry is trying to sort of create labels now, but unfortunately right now anyone can call themselves anything. And so that's why the qualification counts in this deal. You need to see that, the only thing that really counts is it a certified financial planner? Then you know that that's a real deal, but that has to be certified financial planner. And you can go onto the FPI's website, not FBI, FPI Financial Planning Institute, and have a look and see if that person is a certified financial planner. But for the rest, those titles are pretty meaningless, I'm afraid, but that is going to change.
They can call themselves a financial planner. They can't call themselves a certified financial planner.
Unless they've got the qualification.
It's like calling yourself a project manager when you don't have the qualification.
Yeah. I'm a bookkeeper or I'm a chartered accountant.
Yeah, same thing. Got you. Warren Ingram, he calls himself Warren Ingram. That's what he calls himself. He is a certified financial planner. He's